behavior. Something fairly new they've added is the procedures. You can see when we click on procedures in the left side, it says teach your agent to handle specific tasks in natural language. This is extremely good for customer service agents. Let me explain why. Let's say that you're creating an agent that has to pick up phone calls and answer customer service questions. The way customer service works is that 80% of all questions that are asked are usually the same kind of questions. Maybe something billing related, maybe refund related, maybe didn't receive my package related. Depends, of course, on the business that you are setting it up for. But procedures are extremely smart because it basically allows us to give our agent an SOP that it then has access to. So if we, for example, click generate procedure, then we have the option to upload an SOP, a help center article, a support playbook, etc. That is the quickest way of doing procedures. We can also create them as blank procedures and add something custom. For example, here I found some random example of an SOP. An SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedure, and it basically explains how you should operate in different scenarios. So if we click download right here and save this as a PDF, then we can click generate procedure inside of 11 Labs, and we can upload this PDF right here. And now you can see it says analyzing document, and it's going to take all of this information, break them into basically steps that has the format like, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. And we basically generate a bunch of different scenarios so the agent knows what to do in those scenarios. I hope that kind of makes sense. The cool thing about this is that you're basically training the agent exactly like you would train a human. When a human gets hired on a job, they usually receive a couple of documents with like instructions for what to do in different scenarios, which is what an SOP is. And we are kind of training our AI exactly like you would train a human, giving it all of the context so it knows what to do in different scenarios. The main difference is that when we have added this to the AI, it doesn't forget. Humans tend to do that. And now you can see one created procedure from the document, and it has created this document right here that is basically a summary of the other document. And there's a trigger that says when staff needs to create, review, update, or withdraw a standard operating procedure for HTA associates. So if we go back to our agent, we can either test it with voice, but we can also test it with text. And that is sometimes the smartest thing to do because it's faster. We can then find something inside of here and ask, do I need to bring SOP templates? Now it's going to search inside of the procedure that it has access to, and it's giving us a response based on that. The group SOP controller actually supplies those, so you'll get the right format from them. This is probably something that is set inside of this SOP. You can see only the SOP controller can update, edit, or delete SOPs. Not sure what this document is about. There's also something about GDPR inside of here. I can ask, should name and signature be visible on the SOP? And now you can see it says, good question, the author and reviewer can be visible to the immediate user group, but if the SOP is for a larger audience, like on a website, then those details should be excluded. Probably something that it says in this SOP. That was just an example. I don't even understand what this SOP is about, but we can specifically give access to specific documents and specific scenarios where it then knows what to do and when to do it. Let me delete this because we're not going to need that. And let me show you an example of probably how you would be using it. Because one way is uploading a document like this, but I actually like to create them blank instead. So we just click blank procedure. And here we can call it pricing. We can then say when the customer asks about pricing. So let's say that a customer asks about pricing, what do we then want to happen? Then we can explain what the agent actually needs to do. We can say, tell the customer that the price depends on their exact needs, and we have multiple packages. Then ask them how their car is looking, if they want interior and exterior, and that they can be saving $100 on the gold package. This is just an example. But it's kind of like creating an FAQ. The way you used to do it in the old days is that you had a section of your prompt that was an FAQ section. So if they asked about this, say this. But now we can actually add it as procedures. They've kind of built that in. So we can now reset this conversation. Then we can ask them, what is the price? And now you can see it says the price really depends on what your car needs, you know. We have got a few different packages. How's the car looking these days? I think about getting both the inside and outside done. Just so you know, a lot of folks save $100 on our gold package, which is pretty sweet. Nice. It's exactly what we told it to write. So now you don't want to add that to the prompt, you want to add it to the procedure section, which is basically like an FAQ section, a prompt, if you've created one of those before. The next thing we're going to take a look at is one of the most useful things inside of this entire platform, which is the workflows. So let's get into that.